Hi, I'm Mike Mullins. I'm the Director of Operations with Stoney Grow Gardens and Stoney only and Portlandsterdam University. Thank you very much for coming. We've been in business for 18 years here in the state of Oregon. Cannabis industry is definitely coming around. It's important for every single individual and every single business to be involved in politics and to be involved with what's going on in their neighborhood and their local communities. I can't say how much importance it is for you to speak out and to be here, and we're sure glad you took the first step to be here. Well, some of you may not know, Jennifer Valley ran for a county position seat in the primaries, and she may be running again in the future possibly. But during that run, we were out on the campaign trail with the other candidates that were involved in this process. And we met a few that we thought we should bring to attention here and ask for your support. We feel that we found some folks that we can count on to go forward with. And we're here today to ask you to support both Bernard and Ken Humberston. Ken is running for seat number 4 in Clackamas County. Jim is a current county commissioner. He's running for the chair. He's running against John Ludlow, and Ken is running against Tootie Smith. If you've ever been to the meetings down there at Clackamas County and listened to the tapes and so forth of the work that's been done so far to date in our category, you know those people's positions, and you know that we need to get someone else in there to help us out. So I can't stress enough how important this can be for us in going into the future. And right now, I think I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over. I'm going to give it to the floor to Jim, and I'm going to let him talk. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim. Well, again, I'm Jim Bernard. I served as mayor of Milwaukee for 8 years prior to running for the county commission, and I've been on the county commission almost 8 years now. I'm running against the chair because the chair is an idiot. No, I didn't say that. The chair has really damaged all our relationships with everybody, with Metro, with cities. There's this crazy thing going on about urban-rural reserve, but that's another story. When the voters voted to legalize marijuana, and I'll tell you, I voted no. All of us voted no. Because frankly, I'm in law enforcement. That's my priority at the county, and it's a pretty scary thought. But you know, the voters voted, and now it's time to figure out a way to make it, part of everyday life. And so we set up. We spent a long time, got a task force together, and worked on the regulations. To be tough in many ways, but also for me, it was kind of like, I want to preserve the opportunity for the people who make the investment to grow with the industry and to continue and not have so many people to compete with that business dies out. And I think that was that for me. I'm a small business owner, by the way. I'm third generation owner of an automotive repair business in downtown Milwaukee. I know what it's like to run a business, and it's not easy, and especially when you're the third generation. So we created regulations, which, I've talked to a few of you. I feel that once the citizens become a little more comfortable with the fact, we need to look at what those regulations are. Should they be loosened up? I mean, you mentioned out in EFU, when you have to have 50 decibels coming out of your greenhouse and the farmer's pumping water at 400 decibels. And so there's a problem there. But for us, it was in the RRFF 5 was a big concern. And our lawyers tell us they got to kind of apply the law evenly. Otherwise, people will get sued because we didn't. So that's kind of where we started. And so we are going to put on the ballot a 3% tax. We talked about that today. And the purpose of that tax is law enforcement, code enforcement, and juvenile. juvenile addiction prevention and stuff like that. We haven't got into the details that much, but that'll be on the ballot in November along with a whole lot of other things. I'm running because I think that, one thing, I think that marijuana has a lot of opportunities. My wife's the director of tourism. I think there's huge opportunities in tourism that once we get the federal government off our back, and there's just, I'd love someday for our tourism department to have marijuana tourism, like ag tourism, go stay at a marijuana farm, work with marijuana growers, learn about the industry, take some home with you. I mean, that I could see happening in the next, as soon as the federal government changes some rules, in the next 5 years, that could be the future. And so, I guess the problem probably is that, a lot of other states are going to do it, and we're going to be in competition, but we're on the Pacific Ocean. We have lots of people flying across that ocean that will come to Clackamas County in Oregon for the tourism aspects. So there were a series of questions that you wanted to ask me.
There were. Actually, I had a few questions that I kind of had jotted down, and I didn't really want to put anybody on the spot or pressure them, but we don't mind doing that if we get a chance for politicians, right? Okay. I actually had some interesting questions I thought were, local residents and entrepreneurs are finding it difficult, if not possible, to start up or succeed due to the excessive regulations that the county has placed on the cannabis industry. This has allowed well-financed foreign interested parties to gain the advantage over the local residents. Is the county considering a review of the current regulations for code changes that allow us to participate? And he's kind of answered that with his first thing of saying, gosh, yeah, we're going to be coming back and looking at this as we can.
He's kind of answering that.
I already did that, so I kind of got me out of my first question already.
The county's goal is to open up the regulations and start looking at them, I believe, before the end of the year, if not with first of the year, when I'm elected chair.
One of the other questions I kind of had was that the county allows alcohol distillation businesses. Would the county consider allowing cannabis distillation businesses, since the same process, the same equipment, and the same methods are used?
So I had never heard that the county allowed distillation in Clackamas County. Have you?
Well, like you have, for instance, don't you have distilleries here? I saw one out there, right out next to the golf course.
The Lavender Farm's one.
And right out next to the golf course, they just opened one.
It's true. First distillery in Clackamas County going up. Right next to Stone Creek Golf Course.
Yes, right next to Stone Creek Golf Course.
From my house.
That's correct.
Okay, so
they're going to do bourbon. And that's exactly what I'm
as far as I know, except pressure.
It's allowed in the
we're not talking about
yes.
There's an extract and a concentrate. So we're all in the industry kind of learning the difference. The difference of an extract and a concentrate is a natural product that's made without high pressure or high heat, like the alcohol distillation process, whereas then you have the extracts, which are made from the CO2 and the butanes and the propanes.
But and distilling doesn't require all that.
Right, exactly.
Yes, and so we did it at the Lavender Farm, which was a huge thing, and I don't see any problem with that.
Excellent. That's the oil we use.
And you can currently do that in industrial zoning.
Here in Clackamas County, they are allowing that. Okay, I was given a different answer by the department, but we'll take that up again with the department. Should the county impose a 3% tax, or will the county impose a 3% tax? And we got that answer. We absolutely.
Well, we're not going to impose anything.
They're going to put it to the vote here.
Vote of the people.
We'll be voting on it.
Okay.
So we would go from 25.
But that's delicious, because that means we get to have cannabis on the ballot.
Absolutely.
So the issue lives on until November.
By the way, as far as the businessman, I'm all for that 3% tax.
We should see all of Clackamas County come together around that issue, right?
I would think so. Sure. I can't see people voting no.
No, they're going to vote it.
Some people are going to vote just out of spite, but I think the majority will vote yes.
I believe we'll get that easily, yes. Given that the state is already collecting large sums of recreational tax revenue, of which over 40% is earmarked for schools, 20% for mental health, alcoholism, and drug services, 5% for alcohol and drug prevention, and an additional 10% for local county enforcement. What is the county's plan for collecting our share of the taxes that we are paying? And by the way, we just paid in our single 1,000 square foot dispensary, we just gave the state $39,000 in tax money for this month of June alone.
Should give it
cash.
In cash.
Have you guys gotten the cut yet?
Nope. Haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything about any cuts.
Have you asked?
But there's supposed to be a certain time that they're going to get everything together. We did sort of hear something.
That's exactly why I brought the question up, was to bring up the awareness that maybe, we need to make our commissioners aware that that's available for us. Let's help them go after it if we can.
Yeah, I'll put it on the issues next week for discussion.
Let me know who I call to ask.
Yeah.
I'll call too.
Okay.
And the OLCC has already recommended the state to allow consumption areas, possibly in bars, as early as next year. How does the county feel about this?
Consumption area, so like a
bar.
cigar bar.
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Alaska just legalized it today.
yeah. Well,
Colorado legalized it how many months ago?
I think that's more of a legislative decision, but it's not one that I would oppose.
Okay. Yeah, it would be a legislative decision
Yeah.
first, yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that you were talking about prior to asking me the question was about retail or industrial zones.
Oh, yes.
Because that, Clackamas County doesn't actually allow much retail and industrial zones.
Of any kind.
Yeah, of any kind. So we've been adjusting that, like Bob Dreadmill, for example. He's in an industrial zone. We allowed a certain square footage. Danner Boots used to be in an industrial zone, and we had to, now I'm talking about Milwaukee, okay, because when I was mayor, we allowed a retail area in our industrial zone, and that is something we'll be looking at in our industrial zones in the future, yeah.
Okay.
For me,
Conditional use permit for industrial zones or something?
Pardon?
A conditional use permit?
No, we just
Straight up
zoning.
allowable use?
Yeah, allowable use. And it'd probably be limited to so many square feet. Because we don't want, like you say, the marijuana industry is struggling to find warehousing. If we open them all up to a certain retail, we'd lose all our industrial areas.
And I think a county could say less than, or a city, local government could say it could be less than 1,000 square feet.
Sure.
So, that is possible, Sandy. They could say there could be more than one.
Typically, the plumbing says that gravity rules. And normally speaking, it goes from federal to state to local, but you're absolutely right, because we have state laws that override federal law right now, so that's possible.
I'm actually kind of working with somebody who's buying a piece of property that has a number of buildings that he's doing condoizing, so that each address has a different, address, different ownership, so you can grow in multiple buildings.
Exactly. We teach that card stacking here in our Saturday classes. Oh, excuse me.
There's a name.
Just a quick question in regards to the tourism aspect. So if we don't have public consumption areas, then that's going to limit the tourism because they can't consume in a motel, they can't consume in
That
a
was
vehicle.
OLCC's reasoning was the tourist who flies into Portland, and they're not allowed to smoke in their rental car, they're not allowed to smoke in public, they're not allowed to smoke in a hotel. So where would they consume? Somewhere they would be breaking the law.
Yeah. So there would be something.
Which is why they are
like that,
recommending that it be allowed.
Exactly. Which is why they wanted it in controlled areas, of course. Sure. Makes sense. And then one final question is basically an easy one. There's continuing rapid increase in population in and around Clackamas. We know that 1,000 people a day or whatever it is moving into Portland. It's just growing extremely fast. What do you see this county looking like in 5 to 10 years, as far as like industry, roads, and livable housing? Yeah, Ken, I know we're asking you to look into that little crystal ball. You don't have to be specific about anything, and we can't hold you to it.
11 into Expressway, thank you.
Thank you. Well, in the next 5 years, we'll have funding for the extension of that expressway out to 172nd. 172nd.
Really?
That'll fly probably in with the 26th there, I think is what they're planning on.
Yeah. So you know that Damascus is going away. That's
Is it official?
It is, but there was a lawsuit filed today.
The judge threw it out.
No, not yet.
Oh, a new one?
A new one, no.
A new one. Okay.
So, but we're moving forward on that. So Damascus is probably going to be wiped off the books.
Damascus getting a
And
dispensary.
Happy Valley will suck in some of that land, a lot of that land that's potential development. And then there's, because of the new regulation that, or law that you no longer have to have a vote of the people in the city to annex an area, you're going to see rapid growth out in areas that are already in the UGB. So Oregon City's a good example.
Right.
All the way out to Oregon City Golf Course is within the UGB, and now there's no requirement for the vote of the people. So you'll see housing, employment lands out in that area. You also have Milwaukee, where there's that area all the way between Milwaukee and Clackamas Town Center. There's farmland.
Expanding 213 or putting a freeway in through there or something.
I don't think, it's been, that freeway that just opened was the last one in 30 years, was the last time there was a freeway.
Nobody's using it yet. It's amazing.
I know.
Every morning there's like 4 cars around me.
Yeah, wait.
Rush hour.
They'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
So is there some more questions I can answer? One of my biggest concerns about marijuana at all was really the visual impact of grows out in farmland. I didn't want them to look like prisons. Right. That's the biggest, like a prison. Like barbed wire, lights at night.
Yeah, you had a prison around every cornfield in the Willamette Valley. It sure looked ugly, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You gotta buy cameras for every corner.
And that was my biggest fear. We're going to open up the regulations for at least that fairly soon, the barbed wire aspect, and that you can't have razor wire along the top. And then at that time, I think we're going to look at some other lighting issues.
Now, I drive by Clackamas County, things out in the country all the time that are surrounded with razor wire around their fencing.
Yeah, I don't know, what are those?
Electrical, I mean,
I don't
I don't know what those are, but I see them.
Anyway, so I hope you guys will, I'm not going to talk about the money because somebody else is going to talk to you after we're done. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My brochures, my business card is there. I have my email and my cell phone.
We're going to talk about money later, but there are envelopes here. Each candidate has their own envelope for money. We are going to be asking for money later, so keep that in mind. I've got a little auction I'm going to do over here. We have Portlandsterdam University classes for the weekend for two, and we have a really nice bong and a pipe and a starter kit for smokers that want to try that out. So we are going to auction that off, but we're also going to pass around the envelopes for those. And right now I'd like to introduce Ken Humberston.
Well, my situation is a little different than Jim's. Please don't run out of the room, but I'm retired law enforcement.
Retired, good.
Yeah. The first word was the important one, right?
Yes.
And ironically, I was one of the people who actually voted for the legalization of marijuana. And I did because I have seen too many people's lives ruined by having to go to jail over something that I consider to be no more important in terms of getting high than what I choose, which is bourbon. So to put people in jail for that sort of thing, to me, was an incredible waste of resources and an incredible waste of people's lives. So that's why I voted for it. It really was that simple. I want the people who do armed robberies and burglaries and murders and child rapists and rapists. And I want those people locked up in those beds for a long period of time. I don't want those beds wasted on people who are smoking a joint. It's ridiculous. So that was why I voted for it. Jim covered pretty much most of the issues that I tend to agree with him on. I do want to see some of the things opened up in terms of looking at the rules and regulations. Those that are more onerous and unfair ought to be looked at. But I will say what I said to some people earlier, that it's a time-consuming process. Don't expect things to go extremely rapidly overnight. But if Jim and I are elected to these positions and we have the opportunity to appoint a fourth progressive to the board, then we have the opportunity to move this county in a progressive direction, which means we're going to be more open to listening to your concerns as business people in this business. The idea of cannabis tourism, I didn't even think of that as an idea, but then again, people do wine tourism, and we have 46 wineries, I think it is, in Clackamas County alone, and we now have our first distillery right near my house, which is quite as far as I'm concerned, a great idea, because I can walk there and walk home.
Filter the scent, right?
Pardon?
They don't have to buy charcoal filters to keep that lovely scent out of the air?
I don't know what the rules are for them, but I hope not, because I love that lovely scent. What can I say?
Just to let you know, no, they don't.
Yeah. In terms of my background, besides my profession, which was in law enforcement, I have served on a wide variety of boards. I currently serve on the Clackamas River Water Board. I have been on a school board. I've been a city council member, a mayor, served on 3 separate individual economic development boards, planning commissions. I currently serve on the Clackamas County Economic Development Commission, courtesy of Mr. Bernard and his colleagues appointing me to that. So I bring about 50 years of boardsmanship experience to the table, and I believe in working collaboratively with people. And that's one of the reasons I decided to run, because I see some individuals on our current county commission not working collaboratively with their colleagues, not working collaboratively with our mayors and city councils and our CPOs, and clearly not working collaboratively with Metro. I know Metro for some people is a dirty word. I don't look at it that way. I look at it this way. Metro exists. The voters put it in place, and those elected officials have a charter of responsibility, and they're not going to ignore their charter. So it is up to us, with our own charter of responsibilities, to negotiate solutions to common problems, not demonize one another, point the finger at Metro and say, all of our problems in Clackamas County are your fault. Because if I came to you and I said, all of our problems are your fault, you're not going to want to sit down and negotiate with me. You're going to say, get out of my office. And I wouldn't blame you one bit. So we need to recognize that they have responsibilities that they have to live up to, and we need to sit down with them and work cooperatively on the issues that affect the region. So that's the primary thing that I bring to the table. I believe in listening to our mayors. I believe in listening to our city council. I believe in listening to our citizens, and trying to find common ground on issues and problems. The watchwords I have on my card is cooperation, communication, and common sense. And that's what I hope to bring to the table. I'm more than happy to answer those questions if you'd like me to answer them, Mike, but pretty much have the same answers as Jim.
Yeah, you've the reason that we really support you guys and in particular at this time is because of the fact that these folks are open-minded. They are doers. They're not just talkers. And especially with Ken, I know that he's done a fantastic job in bringing a lot of negative feelings from different organizations together to the table to cooperate and get things done. So it's really important that we have that kind of leadership going forward. So here's a couple of guys. We hope that you'll see the value that we do and gain your support.
Question? Can I ask you two guys a question? My name's Tom Burns, and for many people in the room, you know I have a long history in the marijuana world, but no longer. I think what you're doing is fabulous, and I love the fact you're here in front of this room. But I also know Clackamas County politics. And I guess I just want to ask the question, and this is also sort of an admonition to the audience as well. Do you really want the marijuana industry's support publicly? Or would you prefer it that as individuals we support you?
This gentleman here and the gentleman in the back are going to talk to you about that issue.
Okay.
When we leave. All right. I want to also add, I forgot to tell you that I am running for chair, but I am there for 2.5 more years, whether I win or not. And that's why we have the opportunity to appoint somebody, is if I win, my seat becomes open and we appoint my replacement, who would have to run in 2 years. So I'm there anyway. I just know that because the chair sets the agenda, the chair has more power just by that fact. And it's not the power, it's the relationships that are destroyed. I want to add one more thing. When Clackamas River Water was in the middle of all these lawsuits, and it was just a disaster, I arranged for 3 people to resign from the board, which 2 people could not appoint people. So we were able to. It was quite the trick to appoint Ken and 2 other people. When I was elected mayor of Milwaukee, the mayor and city councilors have been recalled because of light rail. And as you can see in Milwaukee, since I left, light rail is there. And it was
it's working.
built
And it's working.
under my leadership. So I can get people on opposite sides to the winning conclusion. And I think that's what Ken and I can do for Clackamas County.
So yes, we do want your support. Candidly, as an individual without title, fine. With respect to the industry itself, I think the other two gentlemen in the room are going to speak to that issue, and we'll leave it at that. Your political observation is valid, admittedly. On the other side of the coin, if I'm asked a question by somebody outside in the rest of the community, I don't lie to people. If they want to know where I stand or who's supporting me, I'm going to tell them. I don't need to advertise necessarily, but I will definitely tell them the truth. I don't play those kind of games. It's just tell them the truth.
I'd like to mention that when I ran for Clackamas County Commission, I was hoping to get 1,000 votes. I was very surprised that I got more than 10,000. So there's more support for the cannabis platform in Clackamas than folks realize.
And Jennifer was very instrumental in keeping the cannabis issue alive during the initial portion of this campaign because of her running for that and running on that. It's interesting. It's a step forward. Again, as he mentioned, there's another, if he wins, there is going to be another space available for assignment. The best thing that we can do is hope that we're going to be getting people in there that are more in favor of our industry who will change the course of the way Clackamas County currently.
And in 2 years,
There's no question about it. Tui's will tell you anything, but I'll tell you what her heart says, and you're a sinner, and she's going to kill you. You're going to die, the devil's going to get you.
Marijuana
And that's
is
all there is
devil's
to it.
lettuce.
Regardless, she loves me. I carried her signs in, or for the convention and so forth. But nonetheless, in reality, she would just as soon bury me because I have anything to do with cannabis because it's against her religious belief, and she'll never change.
There's I'll put it in a little more direct perspective. If somebody makes a commitment, they ought to keep their commitment. And the decisions that they make should be consistent with their commitment. Ms. Smith and Mr. Ludlow voted or ran 4 years ago on the Stop Portland Creek concept. They didn't want to see a lot more urbanization of Clackamas County. And yet today we're dealing with a land use issue, as Jim well knows, in which they're actually trying to loosen the protections for Class 1 EFU foundation farmland into undesignated, which makes it easier to get it developed in the less of a distant future than it's currently set for, which is 50 years. That's inconsistent with what they campaigned on 4 years ago. And it doesn't make sense. So if you're going to say that this is something that you're for or that you're going to do, then the actions that you take on policy ought to be consistent with that. And yet, clearly, they're not.
And the lands they're studying are big contributors to their campaigns.
Yes, most specifically. I was being nice. But so, what you see is what you get.
I have a question on regulation. They limit the amount that a recreational consumer can consume in one day, but a liquor store, you can go get enough liquor to get everybody in the room drunk, and there's no limitation on that.
They do.
So why do they want to limit the amount of tax money that they can bring in by limiting the amount of sales?
Unfortunately, that's at the legislature level. On state level, the Oregon Liquor Control Board has set those limits on it rather than the county. So that's something that county doesn't really have a control on.
My suspicion on that is that this is a major change for a lot of people, a whole generation of people. I mean, quite frankly, a big chunk of my generation and his generation and the generations before that. And politics is the balancing of conflicting objectives all the time. So, like dealing with the, was it 5 acre, help me out here, the zoning for 5 acre homes.
Oh, the
rural residential.
Right. Rural residential.
All right, thank you. That's the term. Yeah. What you have is people who have moved out there. They have their little 5 acres. They can grow, a patch of tomatoes and have a horse or a cow or whatever it is that they want to do. I've done that myself, and there's nothing wrong with that. They see this change as a big threat. So you have commission having to balance your industry and its needs and desires with those folks who clearly have a different agenda, and trying to find some kind of a compromise that can work for both sides, at least in the interim, while you're trying to get this industry going off the ground and seen as a responsible business community. So I think some of the restrictions you see from the state and some of the restrictions you've seen from the county are a direct result of trying to figure out where's that balance. The folks voted to make it legal. But there's still a whole bunch of people over here that are not happy. So the politicians are looking to go, how do I find this balance point? And that's a lot of what they had to deal with. And I think that's what reflects in what you're talking about.
And I can even relate to an actual story in Northern California in Trinity County. We were instrumental in developing a commercial farm down that way. However, next to us on the next mountain over, there were some 2-acre lots, so several hundred 2-acre lots that were rural residential that were originally designed for people to go make their retirement home on. And what happened during the boom of the pot growers was you had a lot of out-of-state landowners suddenly buying these 2-acre lots and hiring a bunch of tweakers off of Craigslist to run the lot for them while they were gone. Pretty soon every tree was cut down and the creeks were all rerouted and there was poisons being poured all over the place. The county finally had, and it was really scary, they were actually out there shooting each other and stuff. And it was someplace we wouldn't even send our crews even close to. And finally the county had to step in to do something about it because it got so out of hand. So we do have those kinds of issues, and it's important for us as an industry to make sure that what we do is out front, and totally setting good bars and correctness so that we can be respected.
I would encourage you, if you have not already done so, or if you don't have the skeleton already set in place, to form a professional association of people who sell, process, grow, etc., and begin to set standards for your industry, and set just like other industries do. Set standards for your industry, for one another, and help police the people who are not doing it right. And that will protect those of you who are trying to do it right. That will drive out the people who aren't, which will make it easier for you to make a profit in your business.
We're proud to be members of the Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce. Yes, they do allow dispensaries. And it's a very, very good organization to join. We feel, too, that Clackamas County needs a cannabis business association so that we can work together here. And you may see some notices coming out from us in trying to establish something like that very soon. Just a note to let you know about your question in regards to, yes, I like to give the money to the man directly, and so forth and so on. I know about the politics and all. But I will say that these gentlemen did not have a problem with me publicizing this event on the Facebook and our other media for this event, so it's not like they're trying to run completely under the covers or anything like that. We definitely had a lot of conversations and been out on the war road with them in many engagements, and can tell you that we'll back them.
Great. Thank you. All right, well, thanks, and we'll leave very much.